Welcome to the PC Perspective Podcast. Tonight's episode is episode number 292, recorded March 19th, 2014. I'm Josh Walrath.
I'm Jeremy Hellstrom.
And I'm Alan Malventano.
And Ken
And Ryan's
is
playing
in the
hooky.
back as well. Hi, Ken. He could
Hi.
introduce himself if he so desired.
I think you took care of it.
Yeah, way to go with that. Anyway, as you can tell, Ryan is not here, perhaps only in spirit. I think he's actually logged into Google's Docs and telling us what we're doing wrong, which is everything. But he's kind of a control freak. But he's at
now he's not
GDC
actually
in
on the
San
show. He
Francisco.
can do it point by point, as opposed to just telling us as usual that everything is wrong and just shut up, everyone.
Well, he just has Ken cut us off and mute us. And I can pretend that I'm talking now, but I'm muted, right?
Of course.
Anyway. All right. Well, if you want to get a hold of us, you can get a hold of us through email at podcast@pcpro.com. I think Ryan has shut down the 1-800 number. We haven't received any messages that were, for real for a while. So just email us there. You can follow Ryan at twitter.com/Ryan Shrout or twitter.com/PCPer. If you wanted to follow me, that would be twitter.com/Josh D. Walrath. I'm not going to spell that out for you. I think Ken's on there. Alan's on there. Jeremy's on there.
You
Do
haven't
some
picked up
searching.
Josh Tech on Twitter yet?
No, I don't know if we have. And probably,
And now it's parked.
and now it's done. But if you want to figure out when this is on, we have this wonderful thing called the email spam list. Ryan will spam you with whatever he desires, specials on Hitachi Magic Wands, monitors, SSDs. Okay, he doesn't actually do that. He just tells you when the live streams are going live. You can join us usually at this time, namely 8 o'clock Mountain Standard Time. Or is it Mountain Daylight Time now? It's Mountain Daylight Time. On Wednesday nights, and his Twitch, This Week in Computer Hardware, is viewed on Thursday at 7 p.m. Mountain Daylight Time. So, those people who do things by Greenwich time, good luck figuring that out. Speaking
That's
of
about
upcoming
-7, isn't
events, what's that, Jeremy?
GMT -7?
Something like that. Maybe 8. Depends.
No, that's Pacific.
Okay, fine. 7.
I never have to deal with time zones at all in my work.
Never. But anyway, tomorrow we've got a live stream event going on. We're covering Microsoft's DirectX 12 announcement. We will be talking about that a little bit later on. It's interesting to see that Microsoft has been doing some work in the background about 6 to 8 months after AMD announced Mantle. So it's going to be interesting to compare and contrast those technologies. And a lot of us should be on the live stream making comments, some appropriate, some not so much. And I don't think Alan's going to be there, so you can make fun of Navy as much as you would like. What else we got going on? March Madness. Ryan has set up his usual bracket. I think there is still time to join. I don't believe the first NCAA tournament games have gone. It's only been CBI and NIT so far.
Yeah, I guess.
Wait, so the playoffs aren't over yet?
Right. What were you going to say, Ken?
I guess the play-in games don't count towards the bracket because they've played those already. I guess.
Oh, okay.
Xavier lost.
Dang Catholic schools.
I mean, at least if they played it on the ice, it'd be interesting.
There would be a lot of
That would at least
broken
make
hips.
it worth watching.
Yeah. So you can get on there. I think there's still time to join. So anyway, get on the challenge. Since you have the play-in games, you're already a step ahead of everybody else who already entered in, if you can do it. Anyway, so those are the things that I have announced. Oh, one last.
We do have our winners,
Perhaps-
Josh.
We do have a winner. Really?
We do have 5 winners. There will be 5 GeForce GTX 750 Ti's being shipped out. So congratulations D. Todrov, C. Fog, K. Rowe, K. Froelich, and D. Arson, because apparently you have some of the most pathetic PCs on the planet. Because that was how you won this contest, was by sending in proof that you desperately needed this. I hope you enjoy it as much as we think you will.
Well then, I guess that you are no longer able to submit entries because we've got winners. Thank you, Ryan, for jumping in there and telling us who the winners are, wherever you may be, which is San Francisco with Intel. Haranguing
And the
them.
picture that comes to mind right then? Solid drives.
Bad man, Jeremy.
I know.
Shall we move on to reviews? No? All right, this has been the PC Perspective Podcast, number 292. Thanks for joining us. This is Josh Walrath. All right, fine. Moving along. I guess I can cover this one. I actually edited it. Ryan posted a roundup of 3 GTX 750 Ti cards from 3 different manufacturers, and he wants to show them to us. They are from EVGA, Galaxy, and our favorite guys with the minimalist designs, PNY. I'm surprised there's not a piece of duct tape across the top of the PNY heatsink fan with writing on it, but
Costs too much. They use Scotch tape and Elmer's glue.
that works too. But you know, that drying time on Elmer's glue.
You don't have
That's
to
great.
watch it. You can just walk away. Sniff the fumes somewhere else.
This is true. So the most interesting, well, actually, they're all pretty interesting. The most expensive and perhaps flashiest, even though it doesn't actually look flashy, is the VGA version using the ACX cooling. It has a dual fan unit. It's got a large heatsink. It has a 6-pin power connector on the back. So supposedly, it can provide a little bit more juice to your card. The second is the Galaxy. The Galaxy is also a dual fan unit, and it's got a slightly larger than average heatsink. It again uses a 6-pin power supply. Then PNY, who oddly enough has the highest clock version. It's the least expensive fan and heatsink and the smallest card, not to mention that it does not have a power connection on there. It's also ties the Galaxy for the least expensive. The one kind of unfortunate thing about the PNY card is the outputs. It's a DVI, a VGA, and I believe HDMI. But then again, this is a card that will probably not be utilized in multi-display systems. I mean, it's an able and apt performer, but it just doesn't have the juice to push those kind of pixels. So anyway, Ryan through all 3 of the cards. They all performed pretty well. Of course, boost clocks were much higher than what their stated speeds were. EVGA kept right along the highest. The PNY card, even with stock clock and the highest kind of stock frequencies, it was way up there as well. Galaxy was a little bit behind. Performance-wise, these cards were very, very similar, within a couple of percent of each other. There were a couple of interesting issues. The EVGA card did not have PWM fans, and so it was loud. It was always at, 43% speed for the fans. So even at idle, when it wasn't producing a lot of heat, it was still pretty loud. And when things got hotter, then it would kind of notch up a couple of levels as well. The positive thing about this was that it stayed the coolest of all of them combined. And so even at the stock speeds, it never reached anything above, I think, 45C. And when you look at clock speed over time, with the NVIDIA boost, if the chip starts to get a little warm, pulling more power, then it'll automatically downclock. The Galaxy and PNY products, would often do that. And the EVGA just stayed at a certain level the entire time. When overclocked, we saw this kind of amplified. EVGA again stayed right at the clock speed it was most stable at, and kind of the maximum of where it was. While the PNY had some pretty good fluctuations over time, just because of heat buildup, it would clock on down, then clock back up. And the Galaxy card was, again, a notch lower, and it would have a couple of little bumps in there, but a little bit more consistent than EVGA. When you have taken the clock speed over time, EVGA did best, PNY was second best, and then the Galaxy was kind of third. So all three were good cards. They're not widely available yet. I think the EVGA one is on its website, as well as the other two. But we should expect to see better amounts of product through other manufacturers, not manufacturers, but rather distributors, in the next couple of weeks with these particular products. So as you can see from this final picture, the reference card is small, the PNY card is slightly bigger, but EVGA and Galaxy, they're kind of taking it to the house in terms of size and amount of founds, and you get a cooler running operation now. One final note on the EVGA card. Apparently they released an updated BIOS for it that did improve the sound performance at idle, that it kind of shut it down. Is that correct, Ken? Were you around for testing?
I'm not entirely sure.
But they did provide a new BIOS.
Yeah, I don't like they provided us a BIOS to flash, and I'm not sure it helped a lot, if I'm remembering correctly. I don't think it fixed the problem entirely, but
anyway. So just be forewarned, because that's forearmed or something. Anybody else kind of read over his review? Any comments? Anything you like or dislike about the 750 Ti?
Gotta say, I'm amazed by the size difference.
Some people are intimidated by size.
And that's why they buy the little one.
And because it's cheaper and they don't drop off that performance too much.
No, not.
No. Moving along, the Corsair Hydro Series H75 Liquid CPU Cooler review. Have any of you guys read this one? This was a review by Maury. We probably should have had him on, but we kind of stretched for time. I know I didn't get down to my office until about 10 minutes before the podcast due to some extreme nappage. That's not an excuse. Jeremy?
I've given it a little bit of thing and then a little bit of a look over. And the H75 is not brand new. I mean, we've seen the Hydro Series 100 come out, and the H75 it's a little more compact, I think is the best way to put it. I mean, the fin density on it is sort of significantly higher. I'm trying to remember, I think it's 21 fins per inch, which means that those 120 mil fans that are attached to it are just really working hard to try and drag air through this. On the other hand, it means that if you didn't go for an oversized case or a case that was built for water cooling, it's pretty easy to fit that rad just about anywhere, because you'll notice those mounting holes would line up directly with a fan. Just put it on the outside, not the inside. And overall, Maury was really impressed. When he cracked open the water block, there's just tiny copper microchannels. It's actually a really impressive looking thing. That's, at least as far as I've seen in a while, it's sort of a different way of doing it. But hey, from what the performance results that he saw, it was worth it, because this thing was quite happily taming an overclocked, what was he using? I must bounce back to testing configuration. He was overclocking an i5 3570K. And he was also doing it on an i7 4770K. And overall, the temperatures on this were relatively impressive. They were keeping up with some more expensive comparative products, which is really what we're after. We want a good performance per dollar. So as you can see on Ivy Bridge, it's actually doing better than its bigger brother, the H100, and the two that are doing much better, the Silver Arrow and the XSPC, are, from what I remember, quite a bit more expensive than what you're looking at for this particular product. On the other hand, part of that is because the base plate is plastic. So that does, sort of lessen the amount of heat that base plate can hold on to about 0. But it does make it a little bit cheaper. And it also used an aluminum radiator. Again, not quite as good at passing off heat, but certainly cheaper. So if you're looking at something that's, mid-range, but is going to be able to handle a top-range processor, this is not a bad idea. And if things go wrong, it comes with a 5-year warranty. So as long as you're not using it for that other use, you're going to be fine. It's really not a bad investment.
Yeah,
Anyone
I've been
else?
messing around with some of the self-contained. I had the anti-cooler 620, I believe, for a while. That worked nice until the fan started going out, and that's an easy change. Currently using that Silverstone T02, I think it is, and that's a dual fan, really thick radiator, and it keeps the chips kind of cool, even though it was a pain in the butt to install that. Corsair usually has a pretty easy installation procedure, and so I think a lot of these are based on Acetech designs. I know that they've done who's the other Canadian self-contained water cooling guys?
Cool It?
Yeah, Cool It. They used to be primarily Cool It. Now they've kind of gone 50-50 with Cool It and Acetech. So it's nice to see some differentiation within their own product lines. It gives us a little bit more variety, and certainly that cooling plate with the really, really, really tiny fins in there, that reminds me of just ages ago when they had their first water cooling product, and they didn't quite account for that whole corrosion thing. And for a while there, people running it was like, hey, awesome temperatures, and then suddenly, wow, my CPU is really overheating. And they crack it open, and it's just one giant solid block of green corrosion on these copper plates. And obviously, I think they've gotten past a lot of these issues with their modern water cooling.
Yes,
units.
the early days of water cooling. Oh, it was kind of gross.
Yeah, especially the people would have stuff growing in there.
I add algae killer to my liquid system. No, you shouldn't be using something algae's growing in. Just stop.
I haven't had algae, but I had aluminum plating out on the plastic reservoir of a first-generation Coolants system.
Oh.
And it did it to the point that there were so many gases being produced from the oxidation that when I went to go open the fill valve, it actually sounded like a soda can opening.
So you're
And he was
saying your water
overcome by
cooling
the
system
fumes,
farted on
and
you?
he has not recovered since.
Yep.
Go ahead, Jeremy. Sorry to talk over you.
I was going to say your water cooling loop farted on you.
Basically. And that was shortly after it cracked the side of the reservoir. Compressing.
So frame rate time, right? Fart? Yeah.
Yes.
Anyway.
Yeah.
Moving along. What is next? Oh, speaking about more enclosed water cooling, using the NZXT Kraken G10 to water cool a Radeon R9 290. Now, NZXT offers this particular product to cool your video card. And Ken, did you do quite a bit of work on this to help? I know you did video.
Ryan did most of the testing, but I can make something up, I think.
We like you making things up.
Yeah, okay. So basically, the Kraken G10 portion of this, which we reviewed, is this red bracket here that allows you to mount a self-contained water cooler, kind of like the H75 we were just talking about, but more specific compatibility to a GPU instead of a CPU. And the idea being that you could buy a universal bracket for... they have the compatibility list for GPUs somewhere in here. Here we go. There are the GPUs. And just apply it and help with your thermal dissipation. And we thought it'd be interesting to put it on a 290, considering how terrible that stock cooler is and how much variance we found with testing those GPUs on stock coolers.
Well, very nice.
You're not going to spill the secret.
Well, I'm trying to do too many things at once here, so
well, that's understandable.
Let me find the results.
Pay no attention to the man behind the curtain.
Poor
No,
Ken.
it's me, and I'm in front of it.
Oh no,
Oh,
he got out.
that's the problem.
Uh,
So hey, what does
long
this thing
story
do?
short,
Like,
a clock speed comparison. The average megahertz, and that green bar shows it better than the other one does, in my personal opinion. He went from 938.82 megahertz as an overall average, running for how long was he doing it? About 20 minutes or so.
Yeah, I think that was a warm up.
Versus with that water cooler, 1149.68.
That's
almost
a significant
10%.
jump.
so what does that cooler do to cool the RAM, or is it even necessary?
There's a, I guess, like 60 millimeter fan that also mounts on top of the VRMs to cool it. That was the one issue we found, is that when overclocking, the VRMs became the limit instead of the GPU temperature because it just wasn't providing adequate enough cooling. You could probably rig up something better because the issue with the universal cooler being that you don't know exact board layout, so they probably couldn't optimize fully for like the 290, but you could probably come up with a better solution, I think.
Yeah, get a glue
Yeah.
gun and a strip of aluminum and cut some fins into it. You're set for life. Yeah, the current RAM, it just doesn't overheat like the stuff used to. Having RAM sinks with modern GDDR5 memory is almost kind of pointless because it seems like it's more bus limited than it is the actual memory dies in terms of clock speed. Just if you think of how signaling works on these, the memory is clock lower, but you've got essentially quad data rate going towards there in signaling. So it depends more on the memory controller and the specs than really heat for the memory. So you don't really need to cool it, not like you used to. Or at least not like you still kind of have to do with DDR3 memory. Yay, no, May?
That's a yay.
Sure. Okay. Moving along. Maury. Okay, well, actually, why don't we have one final thing? Is it good or bad? It's pretty cheap, right? This bracket?
Yeah, the bracket's what, $30, I think?
Yep, it's $30, but
yeah, you have to
you
buy...
need that H75 to attach to it.
Well, I don't think the H75 will necessarily work, but in one of the NZXT options, they qualify with it because it uses since there are multiple types of ways to mount these coolers, it uses the specific tooth and key one that some Corsair uses. I mean, they all use the same OEM, so you could probably find a Corsair one that will work. But if you
you need a water cooler that swings both ways.
yeah, if you already have one that's like, if you have an old self-contained water cooler, maybe that'd be an interesting option probably for $30.
If you notice on the bracket that there are 3 separate drill holes for different mounts, so I mean you do have some options apparently.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, look at those
Yeah.
mounts. 3 of them. They go 3 ways, not both ways.
Oh.
Oh, anyway. So yeah, read the article. Get a little bit more info than what the rest of us slackers can give you, because Ryan does really good work. Even though he's not here tonight, he does good work.
That's okay. He's doing really good work with Intel right now.
He is, and Ryan
At
pays
least
our
3 drill
bills,
holes.
and we should be more proactive in reading his articles. Yeah. Anyway, Maury, He did yet another article. The ASUS Maximus 6, we're up to Maximus 6 already, Impact Motherboard Review. This is a, mini ITX?
Yep.
Intel-based Z87 monstrosity. Look at all that. Black and red and small. And if you see anything like that on yourself, go see your physician immediately, because it could be the pox.
And it's got four... Is that just 4 SATAs? Well, I say just, but...
You're just never
just 4 SATAs. Well, there's an eSATA on the back.
There's a MPCIe combo.
Yep. So you can use the M2 on it as well.
Wow. That's a good stuff.
So for a case that's going to not fit much more than 4 drives, pretty much on the ball, I would say.
You say that, but we just got a Silverstone case in that has, like, I don't know if it's 4 or 5 hot swap bays in the front, and it's an ITX case. I haven't actually taken it out of the box yet because it showed up yesterday, but it actually looks really interesting for, like, a roll
Ship it to Al, see what he does with it.
Yeah, if you take a look at this picture, it's packed. You got 2 DIMM slots. You got the full 24-pin ATX, and then the 8-pin for the CPU. So you're already handling a lot of power. The VRMs on that they're kind of insane. They're on their own little riser card as well. You're dealing with some tight...
I believe those are the 60 amp rated chokes that you're looking at.
Yeah, that's just
which is just nasty.
Look at that thing. You could barely probably skip that across the lake if you tried. They've got, on the back plate, you got plenty of USB 3.0, USB 2.0, HDMI.
A half dozen of each.
What?
A half dozen of each.
Pretty much. Well, unless you
although
count
I only see 4, so there's got to be a riser card.
Yeah, that's true. And then, interestingly enough, they have the LED troubleshooting thing kind of on the back as well. Neat stuff. ASUS makes some very interesting motherboards in terms of design. And this one is pretty fascinating when you kind of start digging into it.
Yay, Skype.
Okay, so that's not me choking? That's...
Nope.
Okay.
Look,
well,
I'm
no,
on
I'll
hotel
carry
Wi-Fi,
on,
and
because,
I'm
I mean,
still
this
here.
board is pretty bloody impressive.
Yeah, it is. Steven got that add-on sound card deal.
Yeah, and it'll support Blu-ray. But if you look on where the CPU cooler fit is, it's just... it's sort of gory what Maury did to this poor board. He's got a cooler on it that is almost the same size as the board, but yet somehow manages to fit a 2-slot GPU on the end of it. He then goes with the Silver Arrow, the dual tower, and it's just... I take it back. That is actually bigger than the board, isn't it?
Yeah, Maury turned the board into a board cube.
But the thing is, it quite happily accepted it. It had utterly no problems with managing it. And, I mean, overall, this was pretty impressive. I mean, you got the Supreme FX Impact card coming with it. The NGFF slots, of course, as you'd mentioned before. And one of the other things that I know that he loved about it, even if he might not have personally mentioned it, they did a vertically mounted CMOS battery. Snuck up right by the CPU socket, saving yet a little bit more space. So, I mean, this thing is just packed so insanely tightly. Who would have thought a couple of years back that, a high-end enthusiast board could be put on a mini ITX? But yet, there it is.
How many video outputs does that thing have? Is it just one?
Surely it's not.
I'm just trying to figure out, like, if you could potentially take one of those and make it as a NAS motherboard and have a RAID card on that that 516 slot.
Yeah, so it's got HDMI and DisplayPort, and you should be able to use both of them at the same time.
Huh.
Well, yeah, I mean, come on, it's a 78 or an 87.
Yeah, that's an
So
idea.
not a problem. It's just, it is amazing, and it sort of shows you that why Maximus is hit 6th. They have put so much work into this that we've gone from, yeah, that's kind of impressive for a titanium motherboard, to, wow, really, you managed to fit that on there, and you go for the extra power chokes, you go for 8+ 2-phase power, all of the high end stuff. Oh, there's Josh back online. All of that high end stuff packed on this little tiny board. It's rather impressive. And of course, as we wait for Josh and move on, because there's things that happened this week that we should talk about.
And I'm in
we can quickly hit one of our newest reviewers. Oh, is that Josh?
Maybe.
Yes, it is.
Right. Sorry about that. I don't know what happened to my interwebs.
Blame Skype.
So, Jeremy, just carry on about the newest reviewer until my connection becomes a little bit more stable.
I shall. Sebastian Peak has joined us, and his first review that he's put up is the Kingston HyperX Predator 2666 megahertz DDR3. It's an interesting review to take on because reviewing memory can be more than a little bit frustrating, especially when you're using what he chose to use, which was an Intel processor, which for the most part hits a peak and doesn't really seem to care. Overall, the stats are pretty nice. The JDEC is 1600 at 11s straight across. XMP 2666, shall we settle on? You don't often say RAM speeds out loud. Is CL 111313, as is the 2400 speed. Depending on which motherboard you've got, this might be important. As you can see from the picture, it's overclocker friendly because the size of the heat spreaders on this thing are just crazy. If you've got a heatsink that, like, say, the one the Mora used on that on the Impact, you're not going to fit these DIMMs on there. You're going to have to make some space for it. On the other hand, when he did overclock these, he did start to see a nice linear increase on some productivity software like 7-Zip, whereas the higher speeds did actually resolve into quicker performance. On the gaming, you see about what you would expect, which is, unless you crank your graph up, almost impossible to spot. Intel processors, just this current generation, just don't seem, their bandwidth gets saturated. They don't seem to care about higher speed memory. I'd kind of like to see this on an AMD processor, just because they do like nice fat pools of fast RAM. But overall, it is absolutely fast. He had very little problems setting this up, which is a very nice thing with RAM, because some of us are old enough to remember RAM compatibility tables, and that was the first thing you researched on the motherboard. Wasn't that fun, Josh?
No. Yeah, you made a good point. The AMD APUs love memory bandwidth. The higher, the better. You will see increases from each spot: 16, 1866, 2133 to 24, 2666. Even though 2666 is not officially supported, you can overclock to those numbers, and you will again see increases, and especially because AMD has done interesting things with their memory controller, the Garlic and Onion Plus buses, so that you will see a ramp up in performance when you increase the speed. Now, with the Intel processors, they've got a really good memory controller, but they've got that ring bus going through the cache, the graphics unit, and the CPU, and the memory controller, of course. And so you're kind of more limited by that ring bus than you are with memory speed or the memory controller. So as long as you're saturating that ring bus, you're not going to see a whole lot of anything when you overclock the memory on an Intel processor, except in some certain synthetic memory benchmarks, which will obviously, enjoy that kind of performance. So yeah, that's something to kind of consider when you're buying this memory and where you're looking for. And again, I think somebody mentioned that they're on sale at Newegg for not a whole lot of money. It's like $70 or $80 for the pair,
which is 1600 megahertz prices, which means, pick these up if you can afford them.
Yeah.
And again, a great thanks to Sebastian Peak for joining the I don't even know how to refer to us at this point. Joining the crowd, and he's already posted up a couple of news articles. So look forward to seeing more from him in the coming future.
Yeah, because memory articles are painful. They're painful to test for and painful to write. How do you make memory interesting? Sebastian did a pretty good job doing
LEDs.
it. So, yeah,
LEDs.
LEDs. Okay. Yeah, remember back in the day when you would write reviews about cold cathode and LED coloring systems for your case?
It came in more than 3 colors. This was amazing.
It was unbelievable, and it was cheap. And, oh yeah, the really bad voltage regulator would sometimes cause the case to start on fire.
Well, not always, but yeah. I've
sometimes
seen that.
Cold cathode tubes. Alan would probably tell us more about that.
Unexpected grounding event.
Okay, Alan, you must be really out of
Smug?
it because you don't have anything to pull down. You just talk. Your hand doesn't know what to do, so I'm kind of afraid.
Please place your hands where we can see them.
And say something out of your mouth.
Okay.
Okay, fine. Anyway, Alan is absolutely no fun tonight, which is not all that different from any other night. Moving along, shall we? Because it is getting late. You know what? We have an advertiser. And I think Ken has his ducks in a row, even after he had to recall me after my internet crashed. This podcast is brought to you by the fine people and engineers, not necessarily the same thing, of Coolermaster and the CM Storm Pulse R gaming headset.
The Pulsar aluminum gaming headset by Coolermaster features 42mm drivers that deliver clear highs and powerful bass, immersing you in the action for a perfected audio experience. The aluminum ear plates can be customized to your personal style for a truly unique look. Built for customization and optimized for sound, you can learn more about the Pulsar at coolermaster-usa.com.
You know, Rajiv, I would think that he would be able to talk more about it, but apparently, he was hurried, didn't have much to say, or maybe you'd think it would be longer. I guess not. Maybe I'll talk to him about that. I know some people can help that. But moving on to news, we got a ton, which is like 2,000 pounds. MSI, they have unveiled their next-gen gaming series board line. And the best part about that is we know absolutely nothing about it except they include the numbers 7, 5, and 3. And they've got the nice dragon graphic on there.
Just game, Josh. Just game.
I am going to game like the wind. Which would be a GeForce Gigabyte product, I guess. I don't know. So anyway, they're teasing us with these things, and we hopefully will see them soon, because I hear that Intel is working on some stuff, which, again, we might have to talk about. Next, Alan, an SSD supercomputer. You are the SSD guy, which is why I don't ever try to stay in the same city as you, or much less the same bed.
Why, are you worried the SSDs are going to become self-aware or something?
Actually, I've been trying to catch one for a while, thanks to UPS.
Ah, yes. Has your Evo Samsung?
It has not. It has not. It arrived in Denver a couple of days ago, and then it disappeared off the map, and then it showed back up in Lubbock, Texas. And they said, well, we made a small error with your package.
That's like
And that's
triple
always a scary
digit
thing to hear.
miles, isn't it?
What's that?
It's like triple digit miles, isn't it?
If only I would get frequent traveler miles for that, but UPS offers no such program. So anyway, Alan, tell us about this SSD supercomputer.
So let's see. What was it? On the order of 10 petabytes, I believe. Yes. So you take 10 petabytes of flash memory, and you hook it all up to a very wide storage area network type device. And my guess is these guys are going to have like pre-calculated data on the array, sort of like an old programming trick that I did back in like the 386 days, where I wanted to calculate a bunch of results of sines and cosines, and I just pre-calculated them and stuck them in a memory array. So I think you take that and you multiply it by like millions, and it's probably the effect of what this thing might do.
Interesting.
I have a problem with their
Pre-calculated
naming
array.
scheme.
Huh?
Well, the one of them is the Wrangler, which, at least sounds like a big, hefty machine that's going to do stuff.
Really,
Yeah,
it
that's
sounds
The
like
other
a
one is
Tesla
called the
Steakhouse.
Cornet.
The Wrangler is the 10 petabyte of flash
Yes.
machine. So I'm kind of scratching my head. I'm wondering, like, this is either bad or good for just people trying to buy SSDs in general, like average Joe, like Josh, who can't seem to get his hands on his 840 Evo. That's
Oh, I'm glad you
bouncing
said
all-
840 Evo.
Actually, I think it might have been diverted to the Wrangler project, Josh. So you might not be
Good.
You might not be getting that drive ever. Just there's just a
Yeah.
vortex of
But
UPS
thanks for
trucks.
donating.
Yeah, Micron and Intel are very happy with the idea of Wrangler, as well as Toshiba and any other NAND type individual.
Right. I'm just worried about what might be happening to like flash prices in general, because if you put that much demand on the market, the prices might kind of go up a little bit, but then that kind of forces all the manufacturers to scale their stuff up even higher. And so the end result, after the price might be a little bit higher for a little while, is that hopefully it would be even lower than it was before. But that's just conjecture.
I don't know,
You wouldn't be
'cause,
implying
a lot
that
of
the
these,
NAND industry has a long history of price fixing, would you?
I don't mean like from a price fixing standpoint. I just mean that like there's more demand. So, it kind of just puts a damper on the ability of them to crank the flash memory out, basically, as far as somebody's trying to put 10 petabytes of flash in something.
When's the last time you've heard of a flash storage crunch? I mean, it's been a while. I mean, I think that right now with the higher density flash that they've got, that they're more apt to idle some of these production facilities than they are to just 24/7, 365 a year, which is really the only way to do it to keep your factory obviously fully utilized, but getting the most money out of it. So such a project like this might actually be more of a godsend, and they can have a reason to keep these fabs open all the time and not have any real stoppages, and that in fact might lower per die cost because they're more efficient in producing.
Yeah,
Assuming
that's
people
true.
buy them.
Assuming that they're idling their plants, that is true. I have a suspicion that they're not, though, because Intel has opened more plants. I don't think they opened them just to idle them.
Well, don't tell their CPU guys that, because they've mothballed one
Yeah.
and they have idled some of the others. So
Yeah.
it's going to be interesting to see. Flash storage, obviously a big mover in the industry, and something that really was one of the more dramatic advances that we've had in a long time, since really the initial start of true 3D graphics back in 1996, 1997. So it's nice to see that we've got some serious movement in this area.
Yeah.
All right.
So basically,
moving.
that
Go
supercomputer
ahead.
is going to be doing. That supercomputer is just doing analytical stuff, which just needs a lot of storage available, really fast. So that's the gist of it.
Cool. All right. Intel confirms the Haswell-E 8-core Extreme Edition with DDR4 memory. So when is this thing supposedly coming out? It's what, fall?
Second half of this year-ish, maybe. We hope.
Maybe.
That's what they're saying, but they've disappointed us before with this.
Well, we knew
that there's no pressure for them to release it.
Not so much pressure at all. We knew that DDR4 was going to be released in the second half of this year, at least for servers. Now, Haswell-E is really an enthusiast type product, and it's a low volume type product as well. And so they can probably match demand with not only this, but the amount of DDR4 production that will be going out. Now, DDR4 really is not that new. The spec has been out for a while. There's no secrets to it. There just has been very little reason to actually upgrade to DDR4 on the desktop. Now, of course, it will be hitting servers first. We'll see the Haswell-E. It'll kind of get the marketplace going in that direction. And, it's probably going to be a crappy performer, right? 8-core Haswell architecture. Garbage.
It'd be awful.
Yeah, I mean, that AMD FX 8350 is just going to wipe the floor with it.
I don't know. This is one of the... This might actually get me to upgrade from Bloomfield. Depends on the prices, but, I've been waiting for this new upgrade. Ivy Bridge E was nice, but, the PCIe lanes were nice. Ivy Bridge felt like an in-between. Haswell is just as fast and a lot less power hungry. I think that there's going to be some people that are going to be doing this upgrade, assuming the prices are reasonable. Intel has no reason not to release a $700 part, an $850 part, and a $1,000 part, and just leave it at that. The people that are going to upgrade will upgrade. They don't have to offer bargain prices. I hope they do. I really do hope they do.
Because you're all for the bang for the buck. Which is why you live in downtown Vancouver. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, no, I live on the east side, man. It's a lot
okay.
cheaper.
That's even more bang for the buck.
I can't afford a... No, that's the West End. Oh, no, wait, sorry. I thought you were going for a different euphemism there.
I don't know Vancouver at all. I just hear some stuff about their whole food wagon environment.
Yeah, you actually have to put an effort
good.
into starving to death here. There's a good social network.
Very nice.
No food
So
stamps,
anyway, if you got money, Intel has a processor for you and a platform with brand new, really expensive memory in the second half of this year. So look for that. GDC Intel offers Ready Mode for low power, always connected desktops. You know what? I have not read this one bit. Shocking.
C7, baby.
Got? You saw the movie and it was overrated?
Well, no. But no, this is the C7 sleep state for Haswell. They're not going for the Windows 8 whatever. What did they call it? Instant Go. It's not that. What this is taking advantage of the new sleep states of Haswell to drop your PC down to about 5 watts of power, but yet is going to immediately leap back to full speed whenever you want to. And one of the nice things is it's not a sleep state at the point where you can't affect the computer anymore. Because having just spent a nightmarish week dealing with computers that went to sleep and would not accept our Active Directories migration, this is actually awake enough that it would accept that command, wake up long enough to do it, and then go nicely back quietly and sleeping. So, it's nice, and it's also nice to see that Microsoft is suddenly putting out new things for Windows 7 because they suddenly realize, oh crap, we kind of need to do that.
Yeah, this whole corporate environment that is refusing to go to Windows 8. Our
Hell,
corporate
they're refusing
environment
to go to
included.
Windows 7.
Yeah, it was a big enough jump, so it's nice to see that. Honestly, I was amazed after years and years of seeing low power being at idle 100 to 120 watts that we are at idle, a 35 watt whole entire desktops. And then we have this Radeon on for 5 stinking watts. That's like a really, really, really dim light bulb.
Much like
Really
us.
dim. Anyway, moving along again, Intel brings Irish. It's not St. Patrick's Day. Iris Pro graphics to Broadwell in LGA sockets. This is probably the biggest news so far that we've seen from them. We've heard about Broadwell. We've heard about delays. We had talked about Iris graphics on desktop parts as an enthusiast type branding about a year ago, I guess, when we first started hearing about Haswell products and Iris Pro. We thought, why wouldn't an enthusiast want 128 megs of pretty high speed L4 cache on the same substrate as the CPU? It would improve overall performance the way that Intel has it handled. And they have heard our calls and our cries, and they're releasing, at least at first, an i5 part based on Broadwell at 14 nanometer with Iris Pro graphics. So, what do you guys think about this? I think it's kind of neat just because it adds some interesting tweaks to the mix, and certainly it won't be a poorly performing processor. You first, Jeremy?
Well, Intel's assumption that, enthusiasts don't need an APU with a GPU that's got that much power to it because they're going to go out and buy a discrete graphics card. And, Ryan's point to them last year when they announced this and said, no, it's going to only be ball grid array fused on processor was, you don't just use a GPU for graphics anymore. There's a reason AMD calls it an accelerated processing unit, the whole heterogeneous processing environment. You can repurpose that to do what you want it to. And the fact that we've sat for a year now and not been able to play with Iris Pro unless you want to buy it on what is essentially an embedded processor. Because, the argument is that ball grid array is still a socket, but it's not a fun socket to play with. I'm looking forward to this. This should be fun to play with, I think.
Alan.
Al, what do you think that would be like in a storage system?
I think it'd be good on a storage system, and I also think it'd be good on a storage system attached to that's doubling as a home theater PC type of device, because you've got the graphics as well, so why not use it?
So there you have it. It's a positive round with all the guys. Well, maybe Ken. Ken, what do you think? Really? What do you think?
Oh, man, I'm going to mine so hard on that Iris Pro GPU. Just watch me.
You're going to be a Litecoin millionaire. Anyway, moving along. Intel's Devil's Canyon offers Haswell with improved thermal interface material and 9 series chipset. Now, something a lot of people have complained about for the last couple of years is the quality of the thermal interface material. I think some of the claims have been a little overblown, but there might be a little bit to it. But Intel is really aiming at quashing all of these complaints by improving the thermal material in between the actual die itself and then the heat spreader above, and supposedly improve overall overclocking performance with these products. And, not just overclocking, but, any kind of thermal conductivity is going to be improved by a better interface. I mean, some of the 920, 940, they actually had solder material rather than a paste. And nobody had any real complaints about that. Once they started going to paste, then people thought that overclocking performance is much poorer. Thermal properties were not great, and it seems like Intel has taken some of these things again too hard. What is with Intel reacting to consumers in such a manner? It's like they have a new CEO or something.
Oh, is
They're
that what
getting
it is?
bored. They have no competition. And yeah, they do seem to have a new... No, it's not Nokia. Wait, who is it again?
I don't know where you're going.
The new CEO.
Of Microsoft?
Yeah.
That's the...
No, Intel.
Oh, Intel. Sadly enough, I can't remember his name.
Damn, I was hoping you could, because I can't either. I remember the build up to it. I remember all the prognostication that was who it was gonna be, and
he has not made a whole lot of speeches so far, and I think he's just been kind of keeping his head down and actually working in the company rather than being a figurehead. So, Krasnick, is that his? Brian Krasnick?
Yeah, it is.
Thank goodness for the IRC channel telling us journalists who should be on top of these things.
Oh, like you pointed out,
what's going on?
It's a good thing. The journalists don't know who he is, but the developers do. Because we all know how developers worked out.
You sprain your ankle while running around screaming that. Anyway, like we mentioned, Ryan is at GDC, and we've got all kinds of announcements. We can quickly go through these things. OpenGL ES 3.1 spec released by the Kronos Group. Kronos Group has been rather busy in the last couple of years. They've kind of gotten out of their slump. We see OpenGL 4.0 support coming out. OpenGL ES has gone from 1.0, 2.0, 3.0, now 3.1, which is kind of DX11 Lite, but for low power. These again are positive things. Sickle 1.2 provisional spec released by Kronos. I don't actually know what that is. I really need to start reading more. Jeremy, do you have any idea?
C++ 11. But they sort of all tie together. Right? It's Kronos Group sort of announcing that with OpenGL, SyncCL, EGL, and WebCL, with WebCL hitting 1.0 for the first time ever, mobile gaming is about to change completely. What they sort of are putting out is really going to put multi-core phones on the map. Up until now, every once in a while we sort of say, why do you need 4 cores and a companion core? It's a mobile phone. There's not that much to do. Fruit Ninja only gets so pretty. I think over the next couple of years with these new standards, and I'm sure that Scott should tie all these together into a nice little article he could put together about what effect this is going to have on the marketplace. But gaming on your phone is going to get better if you're that type that games on your phone. Because I run QNX, and there ain't many games on QNX you want to run.
Isn't that those nice Canadian people?
Yeah.
BlackBerry? Yeah.
Yeah, it is, unfortunately. Yeah. Al, on the other hand, should be doing backflips because his phone is just going to start doing all sorts of neat things.
Sure. Just as long as you have the next generation graphics adapter, or rather integrated part in these mobile SoCs to handle this. We hope. Speaking of mobile, ray tracing is back. Yes, those nice people at Imagination Technologies, they have introduced what looks to be one of the first hybrid rasterization and ray tracing graphics unit. The rasterization unit is based on their Rogue architecture, and they kind of not so much bolt on, but certainly integrate into that chip a true rasterization, not rasterization, but ray tracing engine. Now, there's a few things that you should think about here. Ray tracing is very computationally challenging, especially at playable resolutions. That's something that's kind of been, the holy grail of rendering is to get ray tracing, which is really accurate, doesn't care about things like polygons and whatnot, curved surfaces. Who cares about that? It's casting rays from a focal point into the environment and seeing what comes back. And it's computationally challenging. I mean, any kind of CGI that you see in films, it's based on ray tracing. Now, there's been thought throughout the years, hey, rasterization, it's good, but it's not great. It's not entirely accurate. There are some scenarios where it does really, really bad work, but they've been able to program a lot of shortcuts, a lot of optimizations where rasterization is really quite good. But there are still things that it does not do well. Multiple shadows, multiple lights, those things become very, very computationally challenging. What's that?
Reflections
is one as well. And so the Power VR guys, aka Imagination Tech, they're having a hybrid solution where the ray tracer does a certain amount of work, and then the rasterization does the rest. So they can have very accurate shadows. They could have all kinds of interesting shadow effects, reflection, transparency, multiple lights. These things are all kind of possible on this chip because it offloads the strengths of each of the rendering types to the different units, and it seems to do pretty well. Now, of course, the problem here is who's going to support it. I mean, Imagination Technologies, they do license to a lot of people. MediaTek, Rockchip. I think that Samsung does as well. Their competitors are guys like the ARM Mali, Qualcomm, and Adreno. Intel licenses Imagination Technology, and they would probably be pretty smart to license this technology for their mobile stuff. So it's going to be kind of interesting to see. I mean, we've been talking ray tracing here at PC Per for quite some time. We talked to Carmack, talked to that Dan guy who now works at Intel. Who?
Dan Pohl.
That's right.
From way back in the day.
Yeah. And so it's going to be very interesting. What?
I think that was about 2010-ish.
Yeah. So it's going to be really interesting to see who picks this up, who works with them in software, and where we kind of go from here, because it's all in that same mobile TDP range with this part. So it's not saying, hey, you've got a 10 watt handset here, because that obviously is not going to work. But it looks to be pretty efficient. It looks to be pretty novel, and I kind of can't wait to see what kind of implementations we see of this particular part. Any other comments from you guys?
Well, just the raw numbers, which I really found really impressive for a first-gen processor. Because, I mean, you have to admit that, well, the Series 6XT Power VR has been around for a while. What these guys have done, they're doing 7 to 10 rays per pixel at 720p and 30 hertz refresh, or 3 to 5 rays a pixel at 1080p, at 30 hertz refresh. They were guesstimating, because you cannot really directly translate film to rasterization and ray tracing, but the Rapid Imagination Technologies was guessing somewhere in the range of 16 to 32 rays per pixel for movie quality. So they're only a little bit off. It's like over the next couple of years, we may suddenly see ray tracing on mobile units. Forget Larrabee. Like stuff based off of mobile processors hitting movie quality with ray tracing, and you're going to crash while you're racing because, ooh, pretty reflection. It's going to be interesting.
It will be interesting. It's going to be a while to see because they just announced it. We might see the first implementations in a 2015 time period, hopefully a little sooner. But again, this is the ARM ecosystem we are talking about, and things do not always happen overnight. Ken was able to open up a box, and he got to look at something really nice. Something really nice. It's Daft Ken. Tell us about the wonderful products that I used to review but now have been snatched from my greedy hands.
Well,
greedy hands.
It's a graphics card. I plugged it in. Windows detected it. It's heavy. We don't really have anything. We haven't started testing it yet, but we thought we would make a post showing off the card. Notice 2 8-pins and 1 6-pin. I think the 6-pin is optional, but a lot of power going to this card. A lot of cooling. A lot of heat pipes.
Is it 3-slot?
Yeah.
Or 2.5?
It's 3. Yeah, whatever.
It's 2.5, but yeah, you don't go.
You don't have a half
slots.
slot. Someone should start making cases with half slots. I don't know why.
That would be unique. So, anyway, the MSI Radeon R9 290X Lightning. Such an overbuilt card. It's not even funny. Oddly enough, the stock clocks are not incredibly high. I mean, 1080 for a core speed for an R9 290X is not inconsequential, but it's still not extreme. So I'm going to be interesting. It will be interesting to see where you guys are able to take this card.
Indeed.
All right, Jeremy, GDC 14. Are you tired of GDC 14? It hasn't even really opened up yet. That's tomorrow.
It actually opens up tomorrow.
Yeah.
But we get all the news out of the way, and then we just sort of ignore it.
That's a good idea. CryEngine, support Mantle.
Yeah,
AMD
Mantle,
gets another...
Or also known as DirectX 12, depending on who you listen to. Another major name is stepping behind Mantle. Crytek really thinks that Mantle is going to do something, and so now CryEngine, which is the basis of a number of games, is now going to support Mantle. This is rather interesting because it's not just Crytek. At the same time, you also had the Unreal Engine that I think is thinking about it, and you have what Ryan describes as at least a dozen people waiting for Mantle applications on top of all of these other major names which have thrown their name behind Mantle. So on the one hand, this is utterly brilliant, extra money for AMD, a challenger for DirectX that has been ossifying for many, many a year, and honestly some not benchmarks that wouldn't blow you away, but impressive benchmarks and results from Mantle. On the other hand, Ryan rightly points out, is this going to overstress AMD? Trying to be able to support this many different engines, needing to try and optimize Mantle for these engines, or else completely pass off the licensing and the money to the developer and hoping they do it. So it's an interesting balancing point for AMD, and I think that this is, as much as some people really have had less than positive views about Mantle, it almost looks like another one of those moves from AMD where they just sort of come from out of left field and give you something that no one has ever done before and then immediately sells it off at great profit. I kind of hope it's going to work that way. On the other hand, it's a gamble because NVIDIA is not going to be happy about this. they're not really looking forward to Mantle catching on. They want physics to catch on, and well, physics is still a thing, I guess. So, did Thief have physics?
No, no physics.
Has anything recently had it? It's not that I
There's a
can
couple
think
of
of.
products coming out that supposedly will have physics support and a higher level of that. And so not only do you have a lot of particles and garbage blowing up, but the garbage will stay around after
Oh,
it's blown
Batman
up.
was the last one, I think.
What one?
Thank you, IRC chat. Batman.
Yeah. So, you know what? I've got some interesting things to say about that because one, AMD does not want to be in the API business. They simply do not want to be. But they
wanna
saw
sell it.
an opening where they could leverage, an API to give them a boost up on the competition, and also force guys like Microsoft. Well, maybe not force, but certainly push them in the right direction of improving DirectX. And there's a lot of talk about this improvement in DirectX is also akin to, well, it's connected to the Xbox One performance versus the current PS4. Xbox One has some issues in terms of performance with memory bandwidth, ease of programmability, and just overall GPU performance as compared to what Sony offers. That in terms of the graphics Cold War, or rather hot war, they're a couple of steps behind their competitor. So there's some people thinking that this Mantle and DirectX 12 is a reaction to how the Xbox One has been embraced by the industry, which it's been behind the PS4 in terms of sales, and probably developers have had a lot of things to say about the tools for the Xbox One.
The time I forget my 10-foot pole, because that's how the developers have been interfacing with that Xbox.
Yeah. I mean, we could talk about this for a while, and we certainly do not have the time. It's already an hour and a half into the show, if not an hour 20 minutes. So, we will talk about this more, especially next week once we see what DirectX 12 brings to the market and how similar or different it is to what AMD offers with Mantle. Speaking of GDC 14, Unreal Engine 4 launches with radical changes. Tell us about the radical changes, Jeremy.
They're like totally rad, dudes. They blow your mind. They're like opening up the whole engine so that you just have to pay $19 a month, man. And if you don't want to pay it, you get to keep the current version of Unreal Engine you got. So that way you can still develop your game. But
$19 a month?
$19 a month, which beats what it used to be, which was a large chunk of change up front, 25% of your sales from the game that you sell. Right now, it's $19 a month. No commitment. You can cut it off anytime you want, and a 5% royalty on anything that you sell. One of the things that Scott pointed out, which was really interesting, is it gives you a full C++ source code access, except Unreal Script died a while ago. On the other hand, you're getting a AAA class engine that EA has done unspeakable things to. Ubisoft has pretty much ignored, and Epic Games has sort of announced they're putting things out on it, but, give us time. So at this point, he's opening it up. If you got $20 a month, you can develop on the new Unreal Engine 4. There'll be a GitHub where you can toss back and forth patches. It's not going to be heavily controlled. So all of a sudden, say VR support, those nice little goggles that are coming out, program an API for that. program something else in. It's going to be pretty open, and it's pretty neat. It's fairly unique for a AAA engine to open themselves up at this point. So it's kind of interesting to see where it's going to go from here.
It's the evolution of the industry.
They also did hook up with NVIDIA's GameWorks, so it will run better on NVIDIA now.
And better Linux support, supposedly. We'll see.
We'll see.
Yeah. AMD Radeon R9 graphics stock Friday night update. Ryan kind of wrote this up, and the one thing that we can say is happening, prices are finally going down and becoming a whole lot more palatable for people who want to buy these cards. I don't know if all the miners have just stopped buying them, or the people are just happy with the amount of Bitcoin and Litecoin that they are making per day. But we're finally seeing the prices drop from, the highs that we saw in December, January type time frame when these things became exceptionally popular and exceptionally unavailable. So we're seeing the R9 290, not the X mine, going into the 479 range. Again, it's a supposedly $399 MSRP part. We're seeing the 280Xs going into the mid 300s, even though that's supposed to be a 299 part. The lower end is still a little high. We don't see a 299 R7 270X, but they're getting around in the 250 range. So these are positive things for consumers and guys who just want to play games and not so much want to mine for coin. Anything else to add to that, Jeremy? Anything you saw?
No, but I'll head straight into the EVOs, because the EVO 1 terabyte SSD, last time we checked, is an amazing price. We are actually hitting, it was Crucial that hit the benchmark, the 50 cent per gigabyte SSD. But the EVO, the 250, was hitting 55 cent a gig. The 500 was 51 cents a gig. And the terabyte, which hopefully is still at the same price, dipped down to 46 cents a gig. This
47
is
if you round up.
Beautiful. And it still is, apparently.
Yeah.
And the 840 EVO, you're not sacrificing a damn thing. You aren't getting a bargain basement SSD on that, are you, Al?
No, the only way you can really, it has an SLC write cache. The read performance is very good. The only way you can really tax it per se is if you're able to write so much to it, quickly enough to overfill the SLC cache. Then you're reduced to the TLC write rate. But really, the 1 terabyte drive has a 12 gig SLC cache. So you're talking, unless you can come up with 12 gig to write to it at somewhere on the order of 400 meg per second the whole time, that's the only way you're going to fill up the cache.
Impressive. Yeah, I've got the 500 coming in, and I think I paid $265, and of course this week it's now at $250.
And you don't have the drive yet.
I don't even have the drive yet, and I've already lost $15. How angry am I? I'm angry. My angry face. It's my war face.
How angry are you?
I'm not angry enough to really do anything about it.
Oh.
Anyway, Corsair expands its PC case line with a trio of Carbide series SPEC gaming cases. I've been a fan of the Corsair cases. I think that they kind of hit a lot of the really good spots and things that are important to me, such as spacing, price, construction materials, overall quality, and the type of features you get. So now we've got three new Carbide, which I have been a huge fan of the Carbide 200R and 300R series. but I am not as familiar with these products. It's the SPEC 01, SPEC 02, SPEC 03, and boy, they have an interesting and different look to them than we have seen before from Corsair. I mean, it's kind of a Roswell vibe that I am getting from some of the grills, the red
that's a good
LEDs.
point.
It's a Cylon.
No, Cylons have a red light that goes back and forth.
Well, you don't think you could mod that?
These don't look like Tricia Helfer at all.
Fair enough.
Yeah. So, they seem to be a little bit more 3D. I mean, the side cases, side panels kind of go out there a little bit, and they've got the transparency, I'd imagine. So, yeah, it's a little bit more bling than we have seen in a while from Corsair. And as far as I'm concerned, the jury is a little bit out. Now, the one thing you cannot complain about is certainly the price. For the SPEC 01, it's $50, $49.99. SPEC 02 and SPEC 03 are both at $59.99. Differing amounts of front USB 3.0 ports, 3.5-inch bays, 2.5-inch bays, expansion slots, and whatnot. So they should be able to handle anything from mini ITX to full ATX, and keep watch out for those things because Corsair has done some nice stuff.
For your water coolers out there, all three have top mount fans. The one has the 120. The SPEC 02 and SPEC 03 can fit 140 or 120 radiators on the top.
Well, it will be interesting to see reviews of these products once they actually hit the market. So, that is everything. Good grief, it's been a long time since you guys started this Ryan-less podcast. I don't know if it was any smoother or not. I'm guessing no. Because Alan sure had a lot to talk about. Alan?
I was trying to minimize the room echoey presence on the podcast.
It adds flavor to the environment. It's like reverb in Thief, added by True Audio.
I suppose.
Yeah.
Or a throwback to when I looked like I had Vaseline on my camera.
That's disgusting, Jeremy.
It was, but they had to watch it for many an episode. So did you.
It was really hard to clean off.
Yeah, I kept trying to clean my screen, but anyway, let's not go there.
I just don't get any less dirty.
Anyhow, hardware software picks of the week, Ryan. This week, he chose Pappy Van Winkle. If you are unfamiliar with Pappy Van Winkle, it is considered one of the top bourbons in the world that it is incredibly hard to get a hold of unless you want to pay a lot of money on the secondary market. The group itself who sells it, the MSRP is not horrific at all. However, it sells out very, very quickly. So if you want a taste of this sweet nectar of bourbon, you're going to pay for it. And I'm guessing he did not pay for it at all while in San Francisco, which makes me wonder what he was doing for it.
The guy from Kentucky had to go to California to get bourbon. Just want to throw that one out there.
Yeah, this is a strange, strange world.
The export market.
Yeah, anyway. So yeah, that's his pick. He made a picture of the 23, 20, 15, and 12-year bottles all lined up that he got to sample, and it made most whiskey enthusiasts unhappy. Anyway, my pick. No, Jeremy. Jeremy, you're next for some strange reason.
Wow,
Jeremy?
You're not usually the lead. And I've got a steady line on Rip Van Winkle if you want it, but I'm still telling you, bourbon is just barrel conditioner for what those barrels are supposed to be used for.
You know, speaking of which, I finally got a bottle of... God, what was it?
Oh, it must have been good if you can't remember.
It was that good. He just...
It was so good. It was... You know, I went to Colorado and
Eagle
I
Ridge.
walked past a no Highland Park.
Oh, you're talking Scotch now.
Yeah,
After
and
the
it
barrels
was
have been conditioned.
inexpensive. It was like $37 for a
That must have been
750
12.
ml bottle, and it's good. But you see, I went to Colorado today, and I was at a roadblock, and there was a herbal dispensary right next to the car, and so I had the kids idle the engine while I really didn't do that, but anyway, it's a good story.
Yeah, and then it fell
Your
down at
pick,
the end.
Jeremy. Go to it.
So it turns out that Windows phones and Microsoft Exchange do not get along very well. I explain that if you will. One of the things that becomes a problem are self-signed SSL certificates. I don't know how many of you have dealt with dealing with manually building a certificate in the past. I, on the other hand, today stumbled upon a lovely little tool from TechNet called the Windows Mobile SSL Chain Saver. You run this little thing via the command line. All you do is point it at your mail server, and it will give you the root cert and any intermediate cert between the root cert and the client in a folder already as a CER file. So you can literally just email these to the person having an issue. They can install those three certificates manually, and boom, it works. SSL certificates have been a pain because you had to download some very odd software just to build a malformed XML file. You had to have the FQDN of every step along the chain. It used to be painful. This little tool right here is just lovely. And if you ever run into certificate problems, not just for the mobile phones, this is still going to give you as many XML files to be able to install as CER files. You don't even have to do the translation. It's, if you have no idea what I'm talking about, boring. If you do, this is actually nice.
It's exciting stuff.
Josh.
Yeah, I've got a big network move coming this next week, so
You might want to do that before.
Yeah. So I'll check that out. Thanks, Jeremy. Appreciate it. For myself, an awfully good deal came up this week for a nice IPS monitor. Yes, it's 1080p, but it is 24 inches, and it's like $159 before. I think you've got a couple hours left on the $15 off. And worst comes to worst, you also have a $20 manufacturer instant, well, not instant rebate, but mail-in rebate. So, IPS, LED, thin bezel, 1080p, dirt cheap for what you get. ASUS. ASUS is making my life good. Anyway, Alan.
All right, so during CES, the Kingston press kits came on these little data traveler HyperX, like new USB 3 thumb drive kind of stick deals. And I hadn't really used it that much. And then I was moving some stuff around just on this traveling that I'm doing and realized that this guy goes faster than the SSD in my Ultrabook. It does like over 100 meg per second writes and over 200 meg per second reads. And it's in capacities of 64 through 256 gig in this form factor. It's not like a really, it's a little bit kind of chunky, but not enormous. And the pricing, believe it or not, is like $1 a gig, which is pretty darn good. So yeah.
There you have it. Alan has the final word of what he wants to pick. Ken, do you have a pick this week? Anything that has made your life easier in the tech world?
Oh, in the tech world, no.
How about a system that hasn't crashed in several podcasts?
Why would you go and say that before we're done with the podcast?
I'm torture testing it. If it won't crash now, then we know it's not going to crash.
And Ken would like to see this podcast is brought to you by Vaseline, making things easier since 1957.
Hey, it makes a decent heat spreader.
Anyway, you know what? Again, reminder, set your calendar for tomorrow. We've got the PC Perspective live cast, GDC 14, DirectX 12. Do we got enough numbers in there for you? Live blog coming. Scott Michaud, Ryan Phelps, or Shroud. I think I'm actually going to be on there spewing something unintelligible while I'm at work. And who knows who else will show up. But it's going to be interesting to see what DirectX 12 adds to what Mantle currently provides us. Certainly NVIDIA is going to be supporting it. And it's a big question about what actually it will add to the mix. So tune in tomorrow, set your calendars, and join us for there. So thank you for sticking with this overly long and verbose podcast. You can replay these at pcper.com/podcast. I don't know why you'd want to go any more than about 5 months, but that would be a lot of hours. You can also find Ryan at twitter.com/Ryan Shroud or twitter.com/PCPer. And with that, we are done with the pain. I'm Josh Walrath.
Jeremy Hellstrom.
I'm Alan Malventano.
Hallelujah.
And there's Ken.